must expect a miracle.
You have the power of choice.
Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Life Today Live. I'm Randy Robinson. Good to have you guys here on this Thursday, and we're gonna talk one of my favorite topics: movies, making Christian movies better, if we can say that. You know me. If you've been watching, you know I'm brutally honest. And so today we've got a writer, director who's actually been very successful, and I got to tell you, that's not easy to do in this business. And so he's got a new film that's out right now. You can check it out on PureFlix. You can pay for it on Amazon Prime, so you can find it there if you're there. But to kick this off, actually, I want to show you this little trailer for a new film called The Man from Nowhere.
Where were you when Mom needed you?
I'm not here to question your life choices, but I want you to question them before you're 67 years old, hooked up to a machine that's keeping you alive.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I gotta go I'm doing these.
We, the other partners, have been talking.
You're always mentioning about going on vacation, right?
Your life is a mess.
It's under control.
What is?
You know.
The oncologist said that I have a couple of months.
Is this from your dad?
It's a book. He sends me all of them.
Are any of them good?
I've actually never read them.
The guy on the cover kind of looks like you.
All right, Herb, I'll give you 5 pages.
So what do you want?
Information. I'm looking for my son.
You've said that your dad has been too proud to be proactive, and now the ball is in your court, Jake.
He showed up randomly on my front porch and wants to pretend like everything has been fine for the last 30 years. I don't get that.
You're too busy being a selfish child to even listen to him.
You know what I would tell my son? Let it go.
Have you finished that book?
Not yet.
Well, I got another one that I want you to read.
Every lost son longs to be found by his father.
Well, I wrote a story to try to show you the lengths that a man would go to find the son that he lost.
That is The Man from Nowhere, and I know you just saw February, but it is out now. You can watch it. You can watch it now on PureFlix and rent it on Amazon Prime. The writer of that film is with me, and his name is Chris Dowling. And so we're going to talk about movies. We're going to talk about some of his other projects, which you'll find interesting. He just had one out with Dennis Quaid that's done very well this year. But yeah, be a part of the conversation. Chat is open. And by the way, do not contact anyone directly on chat that's asking for donations. Sorry, we'll need to go through your official website. I got somebody hitting people up. Chris, sorry about that. Welcome to Life Today Live.
Hey, thanks for having me, Randy.
All right. So let's talk about The Man from Nowhere, because this is exciting. And like I said, people can see it now. This is actually an interesting one, too, from the whole, what I understand of the production. Not your typical way movies are made, which really these days is anything typical. Give us a little background on what's going on in this film.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty crazy. I mean, we shot the entire movie in 8 days, which is,
yeah.
I mean, I can't say it's record-setting speed, but man, it's breakneck speed. I mean, like it is. The previous film, I shot my very first film in 15 days, and that was actually like part of our marketing. Was like, we shot it in 15 days, you know. And I was like, it's crazy, and I'm like, dude, we just half that. Like it's 8. So, and you can see by the production value and stuff, like it looks great. I mean, the fact of what Matt Green, the director, who's my partner in this, I mean, what he pulled off is pretty wild. So yeah, an 8-day shoot's crazy. And it was really cool. It was kind of like one of those things where it's almost like Iron Chef or whatever it is, where they give you the ingredients and you kind of have to reverse engineer it. Like we knew we had an 8-day window to shoot it. And so we kind of had to, and we knew the locations we had. Mm-hmm. So we kind of had to build it, you know, utilizing all of those instruments and stuff. And, but it turned out, you know, really cool. Like I'm really proud of it.
Did you just storyboard the heck out of this one?
Funny enough, we didn't storyboard it at all, but and even actually, so we had 2 weeks before we went to production. Because in this, as you saw in the trailer, there's like a B storyline of this film noir detective who is basically, it's the story. The main character, Nick Searcy's character, is a New York Times, best-selling author, and this is his like last novel basically. And it ends up being like this love story to his estranged son, and then it's about a detective who would do anything to go find his son. And so we kind of follow that film noir storyline inside of our movie as well, right? 2 weeks before production, that was a Western. And then we lost our Western location. So it was like, okay, we got to do this in 2 weeks. What can we do? And so we had to take it and completely rework it, find the locations and make it this, film noir piece, which I actually think it turned out better. I think it was better that it was this, this surly, detective versus gunslinging, sheriff.
Interesting. All right. So what's when you do your films, whether it's I want to mention Blue Miracle, which is out now on Netflix with Dennis Quaid. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
When you're doing these projects, though, what's sort of your driving force? What do you? Cause you're not just making movies to make money, although I hope they do, so you can make more. But what are you trying to accomplish message wise?
Yes, that is a rumor I would love to dispel. If you are an independent filmmaker, you are not making money. Like, it is not as sexy as it sounds. Trust me. I got all these people like, well, you write and direct movies. Like, you must be a millionaire. And I'm like, nope. What do you do for a living? Because I guarantee you make more than I do. But obviously it's the passion that, like you're saying, that fuels, making these movies. And I like to find topics that I feel like, can help have a cultural conversation, right? So it's like I've done, and my heart is for special needs community. And so like one of my first movies, Where Hope Grows, the Hollywood Reporter said it was the first English speaking film that starred an individual with Down syndrome. And I've done a documentary called Asperger's Arrest. It's on Netflix. We did a docu-series that's on HBO called On Tour with Asperger's Arrest. And through this whole process, I personally am always trying to find avenues and places and projects where I can insert individuals with special needs in there, because I think as we're going through this movement right now of quote unquote marginalized members or people of society, that's like, hey, we got to do all this. I think the special needs group is really getting as shortchanged as you can get. Like, you just don't see a whole lot of actors and actresses with special needs that get the jobs. And so anyway, so like that, and even dealing with like Priceless, with the King, I did with King Country, like that was about sex trafficking. And so it's like to have something that can spur a conversation and potentially, like Where Hope Grows, like I never knew anyone with Down syndrome personally before that movie, but it's like that gave a face and a personalized experience that you could go watch. And that's the power of cinema, right? Like the movies, like you could go watch that, and now you actually can understand, and you actually have a reference point for, individuals with Down syndrome. Yeah. So and even in the faith space, instead of like beating people over the head with a message or something, like I always want my movies to spark conversation, and like, I want you to just basically get to go on a journey that feels real. And so you're like, what? I have, there's an affinity to that. Like I'm feeling what's going on here, and I'm tracking it versus like, I'm just receiving a sermon. Right. And, and so, yeah.
Yeah. And okay. Two questions. Well, different conversation, but before I get there, why the special needs interest on your part?
Yeah, it's funny, man. It was kind of like art imitating life, imitating art, or whatever the saying is, right? Because I didn't know anyone with Down syndrome, and I was writing this movie, and this movie was about a guy that, had it all at some point. He was a, Major League Baseball player, and then he kind of squandered it all, but he's just not happy in life. And I wanted to have him be introduced to childlike faith as an older, as an adult. And I was like, well, I need somebody who's kind of going to be like the guy who brings him this childlike faith. He's got to see it. And I was like, well, what about an individual with Down syndrome? Okay, cool. So I wrote the character, and then when we were casting, we were like, okay, well, for sure, 100%, we're going to find somebody with Down syndrome to play this role. Like, we're not going to change it to like, something that you can kind of hide or whatever. It's like, no, like, we're going to do it. And so, we did, and we found this guy who, David DeSanctis, I text with him every single day, a very close friend of mine, and he never acted before, and he absolutely crushed it. He's so good in the movie. It's amazing. And, but through that process, and then after that, we were touring, and I was meeting all these families with special needs and individual special, and it just, man, I was just like, God, this is this is a group that doesn't, that, you know, I want to be a voice for that group, because a lot of them felt like they didn't have a voice. And a lot of people in that community also feel like they only have a voice because they have a child with special needs, right? Like, it's like you always need advocates outside of that circle. And so whatever I can do to help be an advocate for that, it just, I mean, I got off that project and I was like, oh, cool. I was getting on a couple boards of things, and I was doing this stuff, but then I was like, well, I'm really not even doing stuff. So I was like, I need to go to my church and get into the special needs ministry. So I took my daughters and we started doing the special needs ministry. And then that changed everything, because my daughters got completely changed by that process. Every day, you know, every Sunday they were dealing with all kids from all different ages, some older than them, and some, you know, in a whole spectrum of different, you know, issues and stuff. And it's awesome. I mean, it was one of the best things I've ever done for my daughters. And to see them in the public now, when we go some places and like, I'll see other kids or parents, they're like, if there's like a couple kids that are like kind of wild, or there's something going on, and you can just tell there's maybe behavioral or learning issues or something. Well, my daughters, like, I watch them step up to the plate, and it's no sweat now. They go tackle that and they become that person's friend. And you know what I mean? So it's like that's to me the beauty. And again, it all came back to shooting the movie Where Hope Grows.
Which is wild. And how'd you make the jump to the Asperger's syndrome? Because, I mean, you know, a 6-part HBO docuseries, as well as a film, the documentary on Netflix, that's a lot of people would kill for that kind of distribution.
Yeah.
And you got it with this. How'd you make that transition?
Yeah, so I was a producer on that with my best friend, and he was directing that, and it was kind of interesting. So he was the DP on Where Hope Grows, and then I think he was listening to an NPR or something and heard a little story about some comedy troupe in Boston called Asperger's or Us, and he heard the story. He's like, maybe we could do a short, doc about them. So he went out there, met the guys, hung out with them for like a weekend or something, and then he brought back this footage, and we were all looking at it, and he was like, dude, I think I have something bigger here if I go back out and we can really think this through. And so he went back out there for 2 weeks, and it really is this beautiful coming of age story about these 4 best friends who are going to graduate, and then they don't know what they're going to do, but they are a comedy troupe, and they, you know, our tagline, which I loved, was, we promised to make us laugh. Because like, they didn't care if the audience got it or not. Like, it was like they were there having fun, and they were, and so and then through that, we were very fortunate where the Duplass brothers came on board, and Mark Duplass is super influential, and he had great thoughts to put into our project. And then from that, we started getting we got these deals, and it was it's remarkable. Yeah.
Okay, so that's very cool, and congratulations on that. At the same time, and you know this, being a Christian who's in the film industry, you got to do good work, right? So, I mean, for you to even have this level of success without even actually really knowing you very well, I know that you are one who insists on excellence in whatever you're doing, the writing and the DP and the directing. You want the best performance out of your actors. It has to be believable. Talk about that a little bit, because I'd like to hear your perspective as someone who's actually doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny. I was just teaching a class on a guest teaching class on leadership, and we were talking about, like, I personally believe a big part of being a great leader is being able to identify talent to bring alongside you, and knowing when to bring those people along, and you have to be able to trust them, right? So it's like, every movie I do, there's, you know, and essentially there's gonna be those 2 types of directors, right? Like, there's the one guy who's like, hey, I'm smarter than everyone else in the room. I know how to do everyone's job better. But I mean, I'll never be that guy, because I know I'm an idiot with most of the stuff. So I have amazing department heads that, you know, that I trust. But like, I mean, I trust them, like, where I'm like, hey, I'm handing this off to you. Like, I believe in you. That's why you're on this team. And they deliver. And then they have their teams. And then, so it's I think it's identifying talent, whether that's acting talent, you know, again, cinematographer, audio, or, you know, but then also on top of that, if being a great, or, you know, director or leader, I think is the nice balance of like vision and empathy, right? So it's like, you have to have a strong vision that everyone can rally behind, but at the same time, you have to be empathetic, and you have to let your team know that they each have individual value. Okay. And if you can put those 2 pieces together, your team will do anything for you. They will crave excellence just like you will. And so that to me is the most valuable part. If that breaks down, you could have a strong vision, but it's like, hey, my way or the highway, everyone get on board, and you're just like treating people like trash. Well, they're not going to realize that vision that you have because they don't want to be on your team.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I truly believe in letting people know they're valued around me and identifying people that are good, are excellent at their job, and they understand the vision.
Love it. All right. Life lessons from Chris Dowling. You just heard it right there. You don't have to be making movies. What he just said, that goes everywhere. And that is really good. I love that. All right. His latest movie is The Man from Nowhere. You can watch it now at PureFlix. You can pay a little extra on Amazon Prime and watch it through that account if you want to. And go check it out. And I want to crack open this little topic here for you because you did kind of bring it up. So I blame you.
I'll take the blame.
I think there is room. I think plenty of room for the kind of films. I wrote a screenplay for a guy years ago. He asked me for it because we were talking about it over lunch, and he made a bunch of movies. And I sent him the screenplay, and he kicked it back and rejected it. And he said, "Yeah, I mean, you're talking about sex, you're talking about drugs, you're talking about alcohol, and we can't have those." And I was like, "You didn't tell me the rules beforehand." and he said, "I know. And also, you need an altar call at the end of the film." Okay, that was he had a formula, and it worked. He made many films. It was a very preachy kind of film. Great. I actually I'm not down on that. I think there's room for these other ones because sometimes Jesus was very hard, direct, and preaching the gospel to people. Other times he's telling these stories in parables to communicate, a truth, a godly truth. And I think there's room for both. I think we can have the Kendricks, that was not the Kendrick brothers that I was dealing with, but their movies have that element. Yeah. And then we have more what I see you making, which are over here that are conversation starters they're presenting truth in a way that doesn't have you're not citing necessarily the verse, that it's based on. Explore that idea for me because I really do think we need both in this world.
No, I absolutely agree. And, there's definitely lanes. And I always say, the Kendricks have a very defined lane and they crush it. And they're great guys. And the Irwin brothers, they kind of have this, the big picture, shiny floor stuff. And they've got their lane and they're great guys. And I love them. And I feel like my lane is kind of over here, a little more adjacent. Where I like the independent, the indie vibe of films. And I like, gritty characters and dialogue that feels super real and acting, that is, realistic. You know what I mean? I'm not saying those guys don't do it, but I've had some Christian audiences say that my actors didn't have enough energy and stuff in some scenes, and I'm like, well, that's not really it. They're playing it real. They're not, it's not theater. They're not over. But I think that audience, is there's pieces of the audience that enjoys all of those things, all of those different lanes. So it totally works. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest change is the old way of, marketing faith films was through the gatekeepers, right? So it was you had to be able to make it so, sanitized that I could have a pastor stand up at the pulpit and say, hey, you guys need to go see this movie, right?
Exactly right.
That has changed. There's a lot of faith marketing that's still trying to do that. I personally believe that is the past. And because now we don't need to go to the gatekeepers because I can go directly to the audience through social media. So if I might have a pastor that's going, well, my flock or congregation, they would never want to see a movie like this. But really, they're all watching Avengers or they're watching everything. So if I can just, supersede that gatekeeper and jump past them and say, hey, look, guys, we got this movie. It's a quality movie and it has some faith in it and it has questions and it's something that you're going to want to do. Okay, cool. So that works. So for me and looking forward, I feel like that's, the way that the marketing in our industry, in our genre, if you want to call it a genre, it's really just a marketing term, faith-based movie. But I do think we're going to head more that direction. Then I think that's a good thing because the audience can make the decision instead of the gatekeepers.
One, you just nailed it. And I really hope you're right because I've always contended that, and it's a tough one. I get it. But let's be honest. If we made half the stories in the Bible into films, they'd be rated R.
Oh, yeah.
And also I think the biggest question is who you're making the movie for. If you're making it for a church audience, that's an entirely different project that you're going to show on, Sunday night to the youth, or maybe do a premiere in the church, and your audience is Christians. But if you're trying to reach people that are not in church, or people that are just flat out not Christians, it's a different animal.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
Who are you trying to reach?
Yeah, I think what that comes down to is exclusivity versus inclusivity, and certain movies that are made for the church that you kind of already have to be on the team to enjoy that movie, right?
Totally.
And so my atheist buddies in LA, like I'm not going to be able to bring them to a Kendrick Brothers movie. They just won't. They won't be into it. Now I can bring my my Christian friends, and they're going to get something out of it. Like they'll go, oh, I need to be a better husband. I need to be a better, father. But it's like, but that's great. That's their, that's their world. And it doesn't mean that they don't change lives. Those movies certainly do.
Sure.
But it just means there's a bigger barrier point for somebody who's, not already on the team. So I personally want to try, I'm more in the space of like, hey, I may offend some Christians or whatever. That's fine. But if I did, this movie wasn't for you. This movie's for these people over here that need something like this. They need to get to know the character before and kind of get in and feel like they, again, connect to this character before they go on the journey, instead of just, getting hit with some stuff. Yeah. But again, it's there's not a right or wrong way about it by any means. It's just a different, like we were saying, different lanes and different routes. And so, and the cool, I think what's so cool about the whole thing too, is we can all like be different in our filmmaking styles, but like, I'll support those guys. They've supported me, Irwin's same. And like all these, it's a cool, to me, it's a cool community where it's like, hey, we're all brothers. We're all trying to make the world a better place. So like, I don't think, look, those guys, I'll never have the box office probably of, Kendrick's or Irwin's, and that's just what it is. Yeah. So like
I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. You will have the box office.
but the point is, we're all just trying to make, positive stuff that can positively influence people and culture. And so why wouldn't we all cheer each other on?
100%. And if you look at even the disciple, the 12 apostles, they didn't all go to the same place. Paul, when he went to Mars Hill, he was preaching the language of the Romans, the culture. In order to sway them to Christ. Let me, just for clarity, what's your bottom line? What's your bottom line goal in life? Is it preaching the gospel, or is it making good films? Is it just being thought provoking? Kind of what's your calling, if I can use the Christianese?
That's interesting. I don't know. Maybe I haven't figured out an exact. I feel like I am supposed to make films.
Sure.
That I do feel like I'm called, or I feel like
that's the
I've always said that God has been the great carrot dangler for me my whole life. When I've just gone, like I can't do this anymore. My wife and I, we're having a year where we're just not making any money. And it's like, all right, I'm going to go, sell insurance. I'm going to go do something else. And then some little thing will come along. And even if it never works out, but even like a call from a random producer is like, hey, do you still have that one script? And I go, yeah. And I send it off, and then he never does anything with it. But it was enough for me to go, okay, I'm still supposed to be on this path. Like, gotcha. And so I do truly believe the only way I've made it this far is with a wonderful, loving wife who is okay being married to an independent filmmaker. And the fact that I truly believe God, is in it. And like, this is God saying, hey man, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Now, as far as like my message, I probably should say, hey, my message is to, spread the gospel, here, far and wide. But if I'm being honest, that almost, for me, it almost feels like that's one step. I don't mean, it's weird. It's semantics now, but like, I want to be the guy that like has you starting to ask questions so that you will then talk to a Christian friend. You might open the Bible. You start, you know what I mean? Like, again, whereas the Kendricks have a very clear and very good, idea of like, this is like, this is exactly the steps and the way you do it. I think I'm more of an entry point where it's like, hey, I want you to start talking about this. Or I want you to consider this. Because for me anyways, also like, life, it's not binary where it's like just totally black and white. And there's a lot of this, these people that are living in the gray, and they just need some help to understand, hey man, there's a God that loves you. Like, and if you want to have that love, man, you want to feel that, like, just keep moving this way, you know? Like I had a professor, a friend, but he said there's, you know, God's love is this crazy waterfall that's just roaring at all times. And it's your choice to step in there and get some of it or step out. And it's like, that thing's never stopping, because Chris Dowling says, hey, you know, stop waterfall. I want you to stop. It's like, that thing's always going. So it's really up to you to make the first step to go under the waterfall. And it's like, okay, cool. What if I can help push somebody just a little further along to getting closer to that, you know, or something they hadn't ever considered before. And so I think that's kind of the space where I'm called to be.
You know what? I think it's great. Honestly, I don't see less value in that either. So I hope you don't either. It is, you're not compromising the gospel. It's just, it's a different way of approaching, you know, people to bring them into the kingdom. It's all the same goal. It's all the same team. It's just, there's nuances, and I think God works that way. I mean, you look historically, he does that. So I love it. All right. So what's next? We got The Man from Nowhere out right now. We got the one that's people can still go see on Netflix, Blue Miracle, right?
Yep. Blue Miracle. I actually have a project which was supposed to come out last year in theaters. I'm super, super pumped about it. We're still figuring out what the distribution looks like for next year, but it's Shonda Pierce movie. It's pretty, and it's cool because it's a broad comedy, but it's a karaoke comedy. Nice. And I'm a huge 80s fan. Everything I do, I love 80s. And so it's like full of 80s music. It feels like an 80s movie to me. Like, and she's amazing in it. And we got a lot of fun little, like, you know, guest appearances. Like, you know, I think I can say that. Like Michael W. Smith is like, sings Freebird. I mean, like, you know, from the stage, like we have all these fun things in there. And it's really, really funny. So I'm super pumped on that one. I love Shonda. She's awesome. And she comes out of this looking like, I mean, she carries a movie, which is, you know, you can't say that about all first-time actresses that are really stepping into something like that.
Yeah. I hope she comes across a lot nicer than she did in Michael Jr.'s movie.
Selfie Dad? Yeah. She's a different ballgame.
Yeah, that's great. Because we're real close with Shonda here at Life Outreach, so we love
Oh,
her.
good. Oh, yeah. She's awesome.
All right. Man, I appreciate your time. Appreciate what you do. I'm gonna talk to you a little bit after we're done, if you have a second, because
sure.
I have a couple of questions I don't want to ask on the air. I just left the audience hanging. It's okay. Is there anything you want to promote? Let me. You know what? I didn't show people the website. This is the website for the movie that we've kind of been talking about the most, which is manfromnowheremovie.com. Manfromnowheremovie.com. I'll grab that, throw that in the chat, and you can pick it up. You can still get DVDs and Blu-rays. Is that true?
Yeah. There's you know, people are still ordering. There's a supplemental workbook to go along with that. I mean, and again, we've seen it, man. It is a life healing movie for a lot of men that have broken relationships with either their son or their father, especially. Like we basically say the movie's the prodigal father.
Nice.
Where the father's the one coming back.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. I love what you do. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you chatting, and hope to look forward to a lot more.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, and appreciate you guys watching. Go pay for the movie, for crying out loud. This is how we support independent filmmakers who are like starving artists. That's no exaggeration. So my gosh, you know, the whatever $5-10 it costs, get some people around, support it. If you have a DVD or a Blu-ray, buy it for yourself. Otherwise, just go get it on digital, and support people like Chris that are they're doing their part in the kingdom to bring more people into the kingdom. What more can you ask? So I love it. And come back. We have more tomorrow.
In these last days,
exciting announcement for the next 2 weeks over the holidays. I'll tell you tomorrow. But check out the movie. We'll see you again next time here on Life Today Live.
You're the fruit. You're the fruit. You're the fruit.
exploits,